After a leaked slide from an employee training course at the Goodyear Topeka plant went viral, revealing a discriminatory policy that allows Black Lives Matter and LGBT shirts and apparel, but not Blue Lives Matter or All Lives Matter, the media has been scrambling to come up with some sort of excuse for their new favorite tire company. They're especially determined to defend Goodyear now that President Trump has stepped into the fray to voice his entirely justified objection to a company that allows expressions of support for a radical, violent, Marxist organization, but no expressions of support for law enforcement, or even all lives in general. After supporting the boycott calls on Twitter, Trump was asked about it during a press conference, and here's how that went.
Mr. President, I want to ask you about your tweet earlier today on Goodyear. It was essentially calling for a boycott on Goodyear tires. Do you want the federal government to stop buying and using Goodyear product as well? And is there anything?
I'm not happy with Goodyear because what they're doing is playing politics. And the funny thing is the people that work for Goodyear, I can guarantee you, I poll very well with all of those great workers in Goodyear. And when they say that you can't have Blue Lives Matter, you can't show a blue line, you can't wear a MAGA hat, but you can have other things that are Marxist in nature. There's something wrong with the top of Goodyear. And what the radical left does is they make it impossible for people to do business if they're Republican or if they're conservative. They put out all sorts of effort, don't shop there. They do vicious things, not so different than what you saw on the streets of Portland 2 nights ago.
Boycott, do you envision?
I don't know, that's up to people, but I wouldn't recommend it. If they want to hold political speech, if they want to let you not do what everybody's doing, if they want to wear a MAGA hat or if they want to wear a Blue Lives, you know what Blue Lives Matter, right? That's policemen and women. That's a terrible thing. That's a terrible thing. So they're using their power over these people, and these people want to wear whatever it is that we're talking about. You know that.
Now, Goodyear has issued a clarification, which, after sifting through the obfuscating jargon, is actually not a clarification at all. Less is it an apology. So here's the statement in full. I'm going to read the entire thing to you, just so you know that I'm not trying to take stuff out of context. So bear with me. This is the entire statement from Goodyear. This is what they have to say in their defense. And the media has passed along this statement saying that it sort of puts everything to rest. This is what they say. Yesterday, Goodyear became the focus of a conversation that created some misconceptions about our policies and our company. For those not aware, a widely circulated image sparked a strong reaction, and we wanted to take the opportunity to provide some important context to the visual and our policies. They continue. First, the visual in question was not created or distributed by Goodyear Corporate. Notice the wording there. We'll get back to that. Nor was it part of a diversity training course. To be clear, on our long-standing corporate policy, Goodyear has zero tolerance for any form of harassment or discrimination. To enable a work environment free of those, we ask that associates refrain from workplace expressions in support of political campaigning or any candidate or political party. Apparently it doesn't include Marxist political organizations, as well as similar forms of advocacy that fall outside the scope of racial justice and equity issues. So those are the only issues you're allowed to talk about, but there's a problem there, which we will also get to. Second, they continue, we appreciate the diverse viewpoints of all of our more than 60,000 associates, which are at the heart of many of the policies we establish. Fostering an inclusive, respectful workplace is important to establish teamwork and build culture, which is another reason we ask associates not to engage in political campaigning of any kind in the workplace, unless it's for Black Lives Matter. That's me talking, not them. For any candidate, party, or political organization. Third and finally, Goodyear has always wholeheartedly supported both equality and law enforcement and will continue to do so. These are not mutually exclusive. I agree. You're the one, Goodyear, who said that it was. They continue, we have heard that from some of you that believe Goodyear is anti-police after reacting to the visual. Nothing could be further from the truth, and we have the utmost appreciation for the vital work police do on behalf of our shared community. This can't be said strongly enough. Okay. So the slide was not created or distributed by Goodyear Corporate, and it's not part of a diversity training class. That is a far cry from denying that it exists or that it accurately reflects their policy. The rest of the statement would only seem to confirm, in so many words, that employees are only permitted to voice certain approved views on certain approved issues. Now, audio from the training session at the Topeka plant has been leaked to WIBW, the local news channel there in Topeka. And this would seem to put all doubt to rest. According to the audio, employees are instructed that they may, quote, express their views on social justice or inequity or equity issues such as Black Lives Matter or LGBTQ pride on their face covering shirts or wristbands. They are informed that such expression is, quote, approved and in accord with the, quote, zero tolerance policy. However, any associate who wears anything that says, quote, all blue or white lives matter will be deemed as having acted inappropriately. All right, here, listen for yourself.
Pride on their face covering shirts or wristbands, that will be deemed approved because it complies with zero tolerance stance. However, if any associate wears all blue, white lives matter shirts or face coverings, that will be not appropriate.
The unidentified speaker says the rules were created to make a better work environment.
There's rules now around what you can wear. Let's try to comply with these so that way, everybody feels good in this factory. I want to make sure, guys, think about what we do in this factory, right? We all work together to make tires. That's what we do. That's what we get paid to do. So let's continue to do that and do the right thing. Keep this place what it's always been, a good place to work.
Based on the policy, or based on the audio there, the policy is considerably worse than first reported. I doubt that it's illegal for an employer to tell workers they may express pride in one race, but not the other. In fact, let me correct that. I'm all but certain that it's not legal. This is by definition racial discrimination, and racial discrimination in the workplace is banned at every level of government, everywhere, local, state, feds. Now, the shameless hypocrites in media who have previously claimed that cancel culture is a myth insist that those of us who object to this grotesque, explicit discrimination are participating in cancel culture. CNN declared in an article that President Trump has embraced cancel culture by speaking out against Goodyear. MSNBC liked that talking point. They adopted it as well. In their headlines, alleged news anchor Don Lemon lashed out at Trump, calling him the biggest snowflake of them all and a hypocrite when it comes to cancel culture. And for good measure, he's also a bigot and a racist. Listen.
We should point out the presidential limo, Don, is equipped with Goodyear tires, and the company has a long-standing relationship with the Secret Service and the U.S. military. What do you make of this call to boycott a big American company?
Well, two things. The president he likes to call people snowflakes and names. He's the biggest snowflake of them all. And I should mention, he has criticized me, he's criticized you, he's criticized my colleagues, he's called for the cancellation of CNN, and he tried to get involved in the AT&T merger. So he is a hypocrite when it comes to cancel culture. Number two, it's because he's afraid, Anderson, that he is about to be canceled and canceled by the voting public, the American people. So I think, listen, we shouldn't be surprised that this president is a hypocrite. We shouldn't be surprised that he is making something political that's not. We shouldn't be surprised that he's a bigot. He's a bigot, he's a racist, he's a hypocrite. Those aren't opinions, those are facts.
Right, okay. Well, don't worry. A news anchor can say all of that. He hasn't forfeited his objectivity because we're informed these charges are not opinions, but rather facts. Well, all right then. It's all good. Speaking of hypocrisy, though, we don't need to strain very hard to imagine how the likes of CNN, MSNBC, Don Lemon, everyone else on the left would react if Goodyear or any other company instituted a policy in the reverse. If the rules allowed for all lives matter and blue lives matter, but explicitly banned Black Lives Matter, every single person currently defending Goodyear and mocking us as snowflakes for criticizing them would be convulsing with rage. And if, I shudder to even imagine, Goodyear had said that white lives matter is acceptable and Black lives matter is not, can you imagine? All of these same people would be accusing the company of committing a hate crime and calling for it to be disbanded by the government, and you know it. And those would be the most reasonable and measured responses. We can also assume that a few Goodyear locations would right now be lying in smoldering ruins, and the looters would have a stash of tires to go along with their burgeoning collection of stolen shoes and purses. There is no denying this. Again, we all know how it would go. Yet we're supposed to shrug at discrimination in the other direction, if not applaud it. That is really the expectation. There is no real justification offered for any of this, no reason, no defense, at least not a coherent or persuasive one. It's just how it goes. Yes, you peon. The rules say that certain races can express pride, others can't. Certain races can announce that their lives matter, others can't. Anti-discrimination policies apply to certain races, not others. Racism is not okay in one direction, but it is in the other. You peon, you rube, just accept it. We're told. Follow the rules. We can't explain them to you anyway because you're too stupid to understand. Just be a good boy and do as you're told. Here's a pat on the head. And Goodyear is getting their pat on the head for being a good little boy, for dutifully adopting racism and calling it anti-racism, for banning diversity in the name of promoting diversity, for taking a position that only a lunatic could really believe, namely that declaring allegiance with a Marxist political organization is non-political, while expressing support for law enforcement or simply for life universally is political. For that, they get their pat on the head. And not much more, because pats on the head don't equal customers in the door. And they've just sacrificed the latter for the former. They're far from the first to make that mistake, and I'm sure they won't be the last. Look, it's very simple for me. I am not going to play along with this game. You want me to accept, or pretend at least to accept, that all of this is okay and understandable and somehow necessary to heal racial wounds or whatever. No, I won't. You damned hypocrites, you absolute frauds, you clowns. No. One rule, one standard for everyone. That's how I'm going to live, and that's the expectation I will have of everybody else. Goodyear then is guilty of both racial and ideological discrimination, and nothing will ever make that okay. It's that simple. Thank you for tuning into the Daily Wire, one of the fastest growing conservative media outlets in the entire country. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like and a subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss out on any of our content.